the part now. I'm just about to solder the 47 ohm resistor across here. But I've just literally IPA'd the board all around these pads here because there's loads of dry joints. They're just everywhere. I'll show you a close-up on the screen now. As you can see, there's one. There's another one. So with the Racal Dana upside down, so this is the underneath of the unit. This is the front of the unit, so I'm standing at the side, this is the back. This board here is the FM loop assembly board, 18-0844 reference. Shows 19-0844 in the manual, so anyway, that is your FM loop board. This green board on the top of this other board, this one here, is your logic assembly board, and that's reference 18-0842 but 19-0842 in the manual. And the board underneath here, down here at the bottom, is the detector assembly board, which is 18-0846 or 19-0846. So you turn the unit upside down, you come inside and you look in there, FM loop board, logic assembly, detector assembly board. I'm going to do the same the other side because the manual didn't tell me what was what, and it took me a while to find this out, so I hope anyone doing this will find it useful. As you see, I work at all different times of the day. This is now nearly 9 o'clock at night on a Friday night, and I'll put some pictures up. I might have to put a torch on here because it's getting a bit dark. No, that's no good, is it? What we've got, this board here is the main oscillator assembly. And there's a tag here that comes down and solders onto the top of the board. I'm assuming there's like an earth for certain components. Well, that's actually detached from the board and ripped part of the top of the board away in this section here. I'll put some close-ups on the photo. I'll put some close-ups on the screen now, and then you can see where it's actually ripped away the top section of the board. And it's actually up here in the air, not attached between these components here. So I need to somehow get this board out, carefully solder that on. So I think we're going to have to take these wires off, and actually take this board completely out, which isn't going to be that easy, and try and do a repair and then put it back in. But that's it from me. I'll see you in the morning. So I'm just working my way around the boards on the top of the unit now. I've already identified this is the the main oscillator assembly, and here, I may have already covered this but I can't recall, there's like a piece of braid and it's pulled the silver off the top of the board. Now whether that's a ground plane or not I don't know, so I'll need to reconnect back onto there and solder that in. And then I'm doing this other big board here that I haven't identified, but what I found on here already is up the top here. Let's get a pointy thing here. There's a leg of a resistor, I think it's R87 that comes through the board, and where it was soldered to the board has come off, which is like the dome shape. I'll put a picture up on the screen now so you can see the dome shape there. That's the original, what I believe was the pad, and it's pushed through and pushed the pad completely off, so it's not actually soldered to the board, so we've got a dry joint there as well. So we get after that, but yeah, I'm just going through and checking all these and labelling the boards up. As you can see, sort of here, I've written 180841 main oscillator assembly, so I know that's this board. I've still got to identify this one, this little one down here, and this one here. And then I've also got this board here, but I'm really not sure how I'm going to get up at that. So anyway, I'm going to carry on. But when I took this one out, it actually had a tested date rebate. I don't know what that means. And it's got LRM20. So whether this was checked in 2020 or whether that's inspector number 20, I don't know. So anyway, I'll keep that in there. I'll put that back on, but I'll put a big picture up so you can see what I can see on there as well. So yeah, and then loads of ICs in here. I don't know how I'm going to get this board out because it's got like a connector to the, so maybe I'll have to undo this one and lift the whole thing up, I'm not sure. But this was the board that I resoldered because of the dodgy joints, so we can check that again as well. So anyway, I'll get soldering on this and continue on looking around the board. So at the back of the chassis here, running along here, are 4 what look like ICs. 3 of them are voltage regulators and 1 of them is a transistor. Now this one here is a -6 volts. When I measure on it, I'm only getting -4.5 volts coming out of this voltage regulator. But it's got 2 tantalums across the terminal, so I suspect one of these tantalums has gone short, which is pulling the voltage down. So I'm going to desolder one leg off of each tantalum and lift it. Then I'm going to check the voltage. If it goes back to 6 volt, then I know this tantalum is pulling it down, because according to the schematic there should be 6 volts coming out of there, not 4.5. And this is right at the very front end of the unit itself. So if this bit isn't right, all the power supply to the various boards and things is going to be 1.5 volts low, which isn't right. So let me get these 2 legs lifted and we'll see what we can find. So here's the dilemma with the Racal 9081. Plug it in, it's on standby, turn it on. All you do is get a dot on the display, no display at all. This was working and it's gone out. It was working, but then when I tried to adjust the frequency using the tune to a different one, it didn't move, but now it's completely dead. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to check the power supply voltages. Now at the back of the unit, in here, there's a row of 4 ICs that control the power, 3 of which we're interested in. We're interested in the second one here that's got this blue capacitor running across 2 terminals. I need to probe the middle terminal of this one and see if we get -6 volts plus or minus 0.25. So we can go from -5.75 to +6.25 and still be within spec. So let me set up the multimeter and I'll probe on the middle tab and we'll see what we get. I'll put a diagram up on the screen now and it will show you position C is where we're tagging first. Right, I've got the power on. I'm putting the negative probe just onto the chassis of the unit like so. That's all you need to do to get the connection. And then I can carefully get in here without touching anything else. Touch that pin. We get -5.95, so that's well within spec and pretty much bang on what we would expect. So that IC is working fine. So let me flip the unit round, as the other 2 that we want are actually on the other side of the unit now. So on this one they're slightly easier to get. So we've got position A, which is right next to where we want to take the reading. It's a different tab this time. The one I probed before was the middle tab of the IC. On this one I'm doing the tab nearest to me, so the right hand tab. That's position A. That should be +24 volts plus or minus 1 volt, so 23 to 25 volts. I'll put you by the meter, probe on, and we'll see what we get. Just set this to 200 volts so we'll be over the limit. Again, I'm probing on the chassis. Unit on. Yep, unit on. And oh, something's on fire. Hang on, hang on. Whoa. I don't know if you can see the smoke there. That tantalum there has just gone. This one here. It's just smoked itself. Interesting. So that needs replacing. That's what you call doing it live. Wow. Of course, red hot as well, and very burnt. Right, cool. So I'll have to replace this, and then we'll have to redo our power supply tests. I can't put the power back on now, because if I do, that's just going to smoke itself. Interesting. As you can see on the diagram on the screen at the moment, the centre section is where the 12 volt IC2 is. And I want to look at C3, the 6500 microfarad, C8, the 3300 microfarad, and C4 is the 4.7, which is across the two pins. But I want to desolder them to properly test them. But I've also found there's IC4, which is another 12 volt regulator, which is next door, and that controls the DC supply to the 1 dB step attenuator, whereas IC2, which is the one I know isn't working, controls the whole 12 volt supply to the entire unit. Now it could be the IC is actually working and part of that circuit is short, hence why we've got no output, or it could be that the IC is completely down. So one of the things I want to do is I want to desolder the pin of pin 3, the output pin, no, pin 2, the output pin, and test the IC when it's not connected to anything to see whether we've got the voltage going in and we've got the voltage coming out. So I'm going to lift pin 2. If we have, then I know that IC is right and something else in the circuit or in the unit itself is pulling the supply down. Now, all of the capacitors that I want to get at, are, apart from one, are on the rear board, and they're down a little gap, and they're quite difficult to get at. So I'm going to undo these 4 screws here. There's one missing down there. See if the back panel drops off and I can lay it down flat, which should give me access to all of this stuff down in here that I want to get at. So let me undo these 3 screws, and then we'll see whether this panel drops down, as I hope it will. Well, that was better than what I expected. The whole lot's just plopped down. There's a couple of little wires here, so you have to put this side in a bit. But that now means I can get at the 3 capacitors here that I wanted to get at, all of the ICs here, because I've got to change potentially one, and this tantalum here, this and this capacitor here. But then we've also got these 2 capacitors over here that I need to get at as well. So we're going to check everything while we're in here. So the first one I want to look at down that row is C3, which in theory is this middle one. Now it's got what looks to be just 2 wires onto it from the directly from that diode pack there. Obviously someone looks like they've been in here before, but I'll have to get some cable ties to put all this back. So I'm just going to make a note of the connections here, so when I put these capacitors back I can solder them back correctly. I have no idea which is the plus or minus on this capacitor. Yeah, I'll have to do a bit of research because I don't know which way round they go. Right, let me get that sorted. Well, I managed to get it out. I had to cut the terminals here. I managed to get the wire bits off. So this is a 6800 microfarad 25 volt capacitor, 100 hertz. So we've got the wires on. So let's see if it's any good or not. Jesus, that's taking a while to test. I suppose it's due to the size. Come on. Hello? Anyone in there? Hello? Come on. Well, this is oh, here we go. 11.87. Oh, it's gone off. Try again. I'm looking through the camera so I can't really see it at the moment. Let me try and go to one side. God, I don't think this capacitor's any good. It's taking ages. Come on. Come on. You can do it. .41 nanofarads. Well, for a 6800 microfarad, that's not working right. So that's the first capacitor in my chain that is no good. So the next one is C8. Where the hell's C8? Oh, C8 is this one over the back. But while we're in here, I'm going to test these two, but what I need to do is I need to make sure that these wires go back in the same place. So I'm going to tape these up to this post here, and I know the red wire goes to the positive and the grey wire goes to the negative. Actually I can't, yes I can tape them up to there. So let me sort those out and then we'll try and get some more of these desoldered. But what a pain in the backside. But yeah, I'm pleased that that's knackered. That could be why the 12 volt regulator's not working, but we'll take that out and test that. So that's looking pretty good. So I now got to source one of these. I seem to be dealing with some big old capacitors recently. I had that one in the Bremmy that time, which was probably about the same size. Don't know about these dents in the cans, but that's what they have got on them.